Hi, welcome to Sacred Intelligence TV. We're so delighted that you decided to join us today. I'm here today without my co-host, but we still have a very exciting show for you today. If you've ever been in a place where you've given up on your dreams, or if you're thinking about pursuing your dreams, or if you're thinking about all the challenges to fulfilling your dreams, today's show is for you. If you know someone who's in that process of thinking about pursuing their dreams but don't know where to start, have them to tune in to the show today as well. Each of us in life face multitudes of difficulties. And sometimes those challenges that we face and the difficulties we face helps us to kind of think about the day-to-day experiences that we must live, think, and do. But we also can continue to think about our dreams, even with those challenges. No matter what your life circumstances and how you were born into a life of difficulties for some people, you can still accomplish your dreams. Now, I know that you're saying that's easy for you to say. I don't know your story, and you're absolutely right. I don't know your story, but I know my story, and I know the story of countless of other people who've decided to pursue their dreams even when they were having difficulties. And I know the story of today's guest, Dr. Dorothy Martin-Neville. Dr. Dorothy Martin-Neville is a mentor coach, but she's a mentor to dreamers. And I can't help but to think about one of the songs from my favorite movie, The Sound of Music, when I think of her. And it's the part where the Reverend Mother sings to Fräulein Maria when she comes back and she's recognizing that she's falling in love with the captain, but she's fearful of following her dreams. And the Reverend Mother sings to her, "Climb every mountain, ford every stream, follow every rainbow until you find your dream." Now, I think about Dr. Dorothy not because she's an ex-nun, but I think about her because as a therapist, an international speaker, an ordained mentor, and again, an ordained minister, and a mentor to the dreamers. She is there to help you follow your dreams. So today, I'd like to welcome my very special guest, Dr. Dorothy Martin-Neville. Welcome to the show, Dorothy.
Thank you so much. It's a joy.
So, I decided that the best way for us to start today's show is to have you to talk about your experiences, because really, you were born into a life of challenges and you faced many different things in your life, but you still follow your dreams. And so I want you to speak to our viewers today about just what your life has been like and how you've moved towards, I'm going to follow my dreams no matter what.
It's been an adventure. I mean, you've read some of it, so you know it. But I started in an orphanage in Boston and lived there for a few years until I was adopted and raised in the housing projects of South Boston, very much an inner city environment, and hanging with gangs and doing what children do when they live in the inner city. And was blessed. I made it out. Not everybody makes it out, but I made it out. And I made it to high school, which is a feat in itself, and I graduated. You know, a small percentage of those of us who started actually made it to graduation from high school. And I was blessed to be one of the kids that did. And the pattern was you graduate in May, you get married in June, which is a success story because you've made it. You have an education, and to us that was an education. An education wasn't college. I never knew a woman who went to college, but so having a high school education was, you're highly educated. And so then you get married, and getting married was okay. That sounded fine to me, as long as I could do something else.
Except, you and I both know when you think about a teenager getting married, now
17.
I'm not saying 17, there's so much you don't know about yourself and about life.
But there's so much you don't know.
Exactly.
At 17, you know everything there is to know.
Oh, that's true. That's true too.
At 17, there's life has no surprises left because you have it all figured out. All right? And if your girlfriends all got married after they graduated, or before they graduated, they quit school and got married beforehand, that's the journey, and you're a success story at that journey. So now I look back and think, oh my God, this child. But I didn't feel like a child. I felt like a grown woman by that point in my life. And now I feel like a child. So life's an adventure. I'm just beginning this process. But yeah, so anyway, so I wanted to get out. I wanted to get married, but I also wanted more. My dad didn't believe in educating girls because they would get married and stay home and make babies and waste all that money that he spent on an education. So I decided in my rather independent way I would go to nursing school, and discovered that my high school was an inner city unaccredited school system. So I was not permitted to go to nursing school because it was an unaccredited high school. So I had unaccredited biology and chemistry, and I didn't qualify. Even though my grades were good, I just didn't qualify. And so I thought, okay, then I'll just get married. And one of my teachers said, I guess you're going to get married to Michael. And I said, yeah, I mean, he's nice, you know, so that's what I'll do. And
that's the criteria for marrying.
He's nice. He's nice. He kisses well. What more does a woman want at 17? You know, that I had it all. And he was handsome. And my mother said, just become a waitress until you get pregnant, and then your life will be all set. And thankfully, that wasn't the journey I walked.
So I just want to point out, I mean, you've listed just within that few minutes a lot of obstacles. So you're starting out, you're saying you were born, you know, and you were born, I know that your mother gave you up for adoption. You lived in an orphanage for a while, but then growing up in the environment that you grew up in,
which was an Irish alcoholic system. I mean, in the inner city certainly has some wonderful hardworking mothers and fathers, but a majority are alcoholic or something, you know.
But what I find
and violent
is that you so then there again, right? And then there's a mindset of the community that you had to overcome, and I think that is powerful, because often when you and I, you know, with us being similar in our backgrounds, we work with people who talk about coming out of these environments or being stuck in environments and saying, there's no other way out because this is how my family thinks, this is how the community thinks, but you did it.
Right.
So
it doesn't matter how they all think. There's something inside of us, I believe, in all of us, but some of us listen to it and some of us don't listen to it.
Right.
But there's something inside of us that calls us to become everything we're meant to be. And I think our soul knows that we are called to greatness. And every one of us is called to allow that light to shine. Whatever that light looks like for every one of us, there's a different flavor to that. There's different qualities to that. No better or worse than the other. They're just a wonderful gift of multitudes. And so those of us who connect to that inner knowing, that inner wisdom, that sacred intelligence, we want to become whatever that is we're called to become. We want to follow that vision we have. Even though we don't see it necessarily, we feel it calling us to be more, to continue to grow and become. And I've had that forever, I guess. And
well,
so
but I think it's beautiful, because what you're saying is those of us who connect to it. And somewhere along the line, I think one of the things that happens when we have a difficult life, for instance, it's like it's being crushed and it's being swallowed up. But you have to remember that. You have to remember that inner being that's inside. And you told me a wonderful story of something that happened to you when you were 6.
Oh, yes.
Could you share that with?
Oh, certainly. Yeah. My father would often say, I'm going to break you the way they break horses. I'm going to break your spirit, and you'll be obedient and a good girl and become a good woman by having no spirit, no voice, no connection to my own essence. And I said, there's more to me than that. And there was more to my girlfriends than that. And I know my father wanted me to play with these girls that presented well. There was 1 or 2. In most of our homes, we have 5 or 10 children, you know. But every once in a while, there was a family with 1 or 2 children, and they seemed, in our mind's eye, rich. You know, everything is relative.
Yes, of course.
And there was 1 or 2 in that home, and they were rich. The girls always looked impeccable, and they didn't wear hand-me-downs. They didn't get it from the 3rd sister down, and the neighbors upstairs who outgrew them handed them down to the family downstairs, which was our story. But, you know, so my father wanted me to play with those girls. But I knew those were the mean girls. Those are the girls that looked wonderful, and yet they talked behind people's backs. They did cruel things to people. They they weren't good in their expression and in who they chose to become. And the other girls that I hung with, that I would play with, those girls looked like they came from the streets.
Yeah.
But we had each other's back.
Right.
They were good. To me, they were good kids.
Mm-hmm.
They had each other's back, and they would support you. They would never speak against you. They would always stand up for you. And these were the ones I wanted. And so I would say to my father, you don't understand. There's more to us than what you see. You're not seeing it all. You don't see what really is like.
Now, how old were you when you were saying this to your father?
6 years old.
So the
I
truth
was a
of the
bit of
matter
a
is you've
handful.
always, I was going to say, so you probably came out of the womb ready to like put the boxing gloves on, right?
I think I knew the journey I was walking.
Exactly. So I think, you know what I think is critical about that is that for me, there's a scripture that says, before you were formed in your mother's womb, I knew you.
Right.
And I feel like when you were in your mother's womb, you were still listening to what God was telling you. And when you came out, you were like, hey, I got the boxing gloves on. I'm ready. Because at 6, you're talking to your dad
right.
like
yeah.
that.
Yeah. That you can't tell me, because I know. But, you know, he would insist that, no, I didn't know. And I was a child, and I was going to listen. And then I'd be quiet, but I wouldn't listen. You know, you can make me not stop talking, but you can't make me listen.
Right.
And so I was walking out of my building, and the housing projects we lived in, the Old Colony projects, they were like squared horseshoes, all right? And so I was walking out of my building to my girlfriend's building next door, and between the two buildings, something just caught my eye. I turned and I looked, and I had a vision of the face of Christ that was as big as the building, this massive face that was just looking at me, didn't say a word, but telepathically, the message I got is that you were right. There is so much more to all of us than what we see.
Right.
And it was such, my first thought was it was such an affirmation to me.
Right.
That I wasn't crazy, that was true, that there was more, and it was such an affirming message for me. And then there was just such, my experience was such love and compassion, that I was receiving such love and compassion, and somebody saw me. And so many of us go through life invisible.
Right.
But somebody saw me.
But what I think is
That's
really
all I
critical
needed.
about what you're saying is to keep in mind, because my attitude and what I always preach and say to people is that God is always with you. God is never going to leave or forsake you. So you didn't see a human person telling you that, but you saw, you know, the face of Christ, as you put it, saying that to you. And at 6, to be in tune with that.
Yeah, I was
That's
blessed.
incredible. That's incredible. And you held on to that as you were going through life, your life's journey, because you started telling us you've had lots of things to happen to you.
Yeah. I was blessed with a deep faith early on. I don't know. I just, you know, where does that come from? I've just had it. I was blessed with coming in with a deep faith, and that remained. Not for a moment do I want to say I haven't had moments when sucking my thumb and hiding under my covers and not wanting to be here anymore would cross my mind, or that I would wonder if I was going to make it out sane or make it out alive, or if I was going to get through whatever obstacle on occasion I would run into. But even though I would go into those pits, I would know, even in the midst of those pits, if I don't know that I can do this, there would be a knowing that of course you can.
Well, I think that's a part of the journey, isn't it?
It is a part of the journey.
We know that we're called to do certain things,
Right.
but we're going to struggle because that's human nature to struggle. But you have to know and believe in your calling. You have to know and believe that you have a force behind you that's greater than you. Of course, there are times we're feeling like giving up. I think I said that on my show from a couple weeks ago. There are times where we just want to say, okay, when is this going to happen? When I look at the story, for instance, I saw Selma a few weeks ago, and I was thinking about the civil rights movement, and I was thinking about somebody like Dr. King, who clearly was called to do this work, and he got tired, and I thought, like what courage, first of all, but to be sustained through that, you've got to have
a deep connection.
Yes.
Yeah. But I think it's important because my experience is that most people think there are those of us who walk in faith.
Yeah.
And we never for a split second have anything but complete inner peace and connection to Spirit at every moment of every day.
Right.
And then there are those with no faith and they're never going to get it. Yeah. And the truth is, we're the same.
That's exactly right.
They're the same. We both groups, if you will, and it's not that simplistic, but both groups have moments of faith and moments of despair. The difference is when you have a pattern of walking in faith and you fall down into that discouragement or even despair, you can look back and know that you've always come through it and you've always landed on your feet. And because there's a pattern of getting up and continuing on, you know, even if you don't want to do it today you want to suck your thumb and stay on the couch and watch movies, that's okay, because by tomorrow your strength will be back, you'll be refurbished, and you'll walk again. And those that don't have a history of that, it's that huge step of faith and trust. And somebody just left my office a while ago before coming here, and that was my message to him, that it's really important to know that when we choose to live this journey and not survive it, we go through moments of self-doubt, we go through moments of, but I'm 50 or 60 or 40 and by now I should have it all figured out. Not really.
Right. We're on a continuous journey.
Yeah.
You know, it's so funny because you're reminding me of a conversation that I had with my husband last night. We're always engaged in this conversation because we grew up very differently in terms of our faith. And he calls me this devout, religious person. Well, of course I'm a pastor, so he thinks that. But he always says that, you and your family, you just grew up very, you're so devout. And whenever I hear devout, I think fundamentalist, which I am not at all. And he says, well, that's not my definition. But you know how to quote the scriptures, you know how to do all of this. And I said to him, yes, I do. I do know how to quote the scriptures. And I said, for me, what is significant about being able to do that, not that I'm judging anybody else who doesn't, but I know that when I'm going through a time of where I'm saying, can I really do this? Or there's some question in my mind, I have that scripture, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
Right.
That's the difference, is that I have this foundation that will sustain me and that will keep me going, because if you don't have that when you're searching for your dreams, it's hard to keep going after your dreams. So I'm sure when you're working with people and you're talking with them about pursuing their dreams, you're helping them to kind of walk this journey of...
Right. And knowing that it's different for all of us, and that growing up as a Catholic when I was a child, we weren't allowed to read scripture. We were all expected to have a Bible on our coffee table, but you weren't expected to read it because only the priests were smart enough to read it.
Wow.
So we never learned scripture. I mean, we had it in services every Sunday, in masses. Sure. Father reads the scripture all the time, and when you go to catechism classes, Christian school classes every Sunday morning, they read scriptures and things, but somehow we weren't smart enough to read it, therefore we couldn't. So we didn't grow up with scripture, but yet we grew up with the same message.
Exactly.
I mean, in the sense of not growing up with scripture, in the sense that we weren't walking around quoting this and this and this and this.
Right.
We knew the basics. We knew the Our Father, we knew the Hail Mary, we knew all the basic prayers, but not the scripture. So all of us who walk in faith walk our unique path.
That's right.
There's no one right path of faith.
But one of the things that I think is critical, and this is what I also said on my previous show too, is that even though there's no one path, it's important to have, to me,
a path.
A path. Something that will sustain you. Because as you were saying before, if you start this journey and you don't have anything, it shakes you, and it's like you're on this boat and you're just rocking and rocking, and sometimes people choose to get off of it.
I cannot fathom going through life without faith and a sense of humor. I think that sense of humor and faith.
Well, God has a sense of humor for sure.
Oh, God bless us and save us. Yes. Some of the things God pulls, I think, oh my God, that's a sick sense of humor you got up there. But yeah, the humor and faith, and it's for me, I don't pull up the scriptures. What I pull up, I have a prayer that I've carried for 30 years, the footprints.
Yes, I love that
And to me, it's that same, to me, that's a prayer.
Now, could you say, for some of our viewers who might not know footprints, could you,
my goodness.
You don't have to say it, but like, can you just give the
to paraphrase it,
yes.
because it's a long phrase. To paraphrase it, it's a person talking to God and saying, God, how is it that you have not always been there with me? When I look back on the sands, it's footprints, there's a picture of footprints in the sand. And it says, when I look back on the sand, I see 2 footprints, except for the difficult times. I only see one. Why did you abandon me? I could cry. Why did you abandon me during the hard times? And Christ said, that's when I carried you.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. I actually have that plaque at my house too.
It touches my heart.
Yeah.
Every time I hear that, I think, the power of faith and the gift of faith, that's always been with us.
And that assurance to know. Yeah. And you knew it at 6. Well, you knew it before 6. And so tell us a little bit then more about, so you made it out of the project.
I made it out. What I did is I couldn't go to nursing school, as I said. I couldn't go to college. Then I decided, well, the Sisters of Mercy do social work. I will become a Sister of Mercy. So I applied to the Catholic Order of the Sisters of Mercy and found out the Catholic Church doesn't allow illegitimate children in the convent. So then that was out. So I figured, well, I'm supposed to get married. I mean, it doesn't seem right. Seems like there's a piece. This wasn't the marriage. It was just there was something more. That there should be something more, and it didn't seem right not to have that. And that was my gut, my soul telling me this. But you know, I was 17. Yeah. So one of the teachers said to me, "So you're going to marry Michael?" I said, "Yes." I said, "I tried college, I tried nursing school, I tried the Sisters of Mercy, and nobody."
Poor Michael, he's like hanging in the wind.
And he is such a love to this day. He's such a love. I've seen him a few number of months ago. He's such a love. But I said, I guess it's just not going to happen for me. And so she said, let me try. And she and my local priest, they tried 1,000 communities around the globe. She told me that 1,000, they decided to stop at 1,000. And they found one community in Quebec that worked with prostitutes. And they said they would take a risk on an illegitimate child because they work with prostitutes. Somehow we're about the same level. And that was going to be okay.
Isn't that, yeah.
It's just amazing. Yeah. But who knows? Yeah. Mass and communion every Sunday, walking in the ladies' parade in May, walking with Our Lady. But nonetheless, I was equal to a prostitute. So I could go up there. I could go up there and put on a long black habit and become a Catholic nun. And so that's what I did. But
here's what your story tells me, is to never, ever give up. Because, so first of all, I think a lot of times and particularly when I work with people, they can present all the obstacles to why they can't accomplish their goals and their dreams.
What are we focusing on?
But here's the thing. They tried 1,000. 1,000
communities.
And they didn't give up on you. And so, of course, that encouraged you not to give up on yourself as well. But God always has a plan. So while you're thinking, I've tried and I've knocked on 50 doors, well, knock on 51 doors, because maybe that's...
there's a difference here. If you get an urge, like for candy bar, that's an urge.
Right.
But if you know you have a calling...
Exactly.
That's dramatically different. You can get that urge for that candy bar or that potato chip or whatever it may be and just say, you know, I don't want to do that. I'm changing how I eat. You're not betraying anything. You're just bringing yourself into balance.
That's right.
And you feel better because you ignored that urge. When it's a calling, if you don't listen, you don't feel better to that. You feel so much worse because you know you're betraying who you truly are.
Right. I think Dr. Dorothy and I are going to go on tour together because we think so similarly. Because one of the things that I say to people all the time is that you have to be able to listen to the sacred. And you know the difference. You know when you don't feel good if you aren't doing what you're called to do. And you just knew.
Yeah,
you knew.
Just
and
out of alignment when you don't do it the way you're called to do. And not because it's the right way, but it's the way you're called.
Right.
All right.
Right. And which are two different things,
It's
right?
important to know that.
Because we're not always rushing to do what we're called to do. Sometimes we just know it's there and we're wanting to go right, but we're being told to go left. And ultimately, when we follow
right.
the calling to go left, we eventually find this place of peace and serenity within us anyway, because we're loving what we're doing. We're enjoying it.
And you find a part of you never would have discovered.
That's right.
If you hadn't gone there.
That's right.
And I truly believe that. And what I teach is that, and the people I coach, the people I work with, that many of us were taught that by the time of 18, you had your dream, that was it, and you live it till you pass.
Right.
The fact is, we have hundreds of dreams within us. And each dream prepares us for the next.
Yes.
Each dream is a calling for you. You know, you went, we discussed that you became a therapist, then you became a minister. Two different dreams.
Right.
But one prepared you for the next,
right.
which then prepared you
I don't
for
know
the
if
next.
I'd say the minister was a dream, because
well,
it wasn't
showed
something
up, darling, and you
yeah,
showed up.
I guess it, I guess. But you know, but I think what you're saying is very critical,
Right.
because what you're saying is that we never ever stop dreaming. Doesn't matter how old we are. And it's not like we have this one dream, oh, I wanted to become and I didn't. You're saying keep dreaming, keep pursuing, keep going.
Because we don't know what that next dream is.
Exactly.
You know, that dream was, my dream growing up was to live in a tenement. I thought rich people lived in tenements because they have an entire floor to one family.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine such wealth because in the projects, you know, there's many families on the same floor. I thought, oh my God, this is it. Yeah. And I never did get to live in that tenement, because by the time I was old enough to get married and do so, I was called to another dream. Right. And following that dream, I thought that dream would be the rest of my, I thought the tenement would be the rest of my life. Then I thought religious life would be the rest of my life, because I fully invest in my dreams.
So tell us about moving from that dream of being a nun to your next dream.
My next move. When I was in religious life, Mother Superior said, "Sister, you're going to college." I said, "Mother, they won't let me in." And she said, "If I send you, Sister, they will let you in." And they sent me. And so I went to college. I was a social worker. And after a period of time, there was that knowing. And there was a resistance. I didn't want to know. I loved being in religious life. I didn't want to know that it was time to leave. But no, that's wrong. That must be you running away.
See?
That must be an urge.
For a line, Maria.
That must be.
Exactly.
And more than once they would say, "Mother Superior would like to see you, Sister James Marie." So more than once I went to Mother Superior's office.
That other song then, "How do you solve a problem like Maria?" Yeah.
Oh, I identified with her well. But whatever it is, I didn't do it, Mother. I didn't do it. Just sit down, Sister. We need to talk. Yes, Mother. But in any event, there was a realization that it was time. And so I left and I went back to Southie to hook up with old girlfriends. And the few I could find, you know, not everybody was still around with us. And some had gone to different places. And the few I could find were on welfare and living in the projects. And I had been a religious. I had been a social worker, you know. We were living in very different worlds.
Sure.
And I had a brother living in Zambia, Africa. He was teaching at a college over there. He teaching the blacks from South Africa who were going back to peacefully work to overthrow the white government. Sure, and I had a brother living on a kibbutz in Israel. And I had a sister living in Barcelona.
So wait, your whole family then just shook up things.
Well, because our home was an extremely violent, unpleasant place to be. Okay. As soon as people were old enough, they bolted as far away as they could go.
So really, it was a motivator.
Yeah.
So the lesson to our viewers too is that you can use your circumstances to propel you to do something different. You don't have to stay in the same situation. You have choices. You can do things differently. Yeah. And it's so hard in the work that we do to convince people that you can get outside of this box that you're living in. And that's what you're talking about.
Because I think it's very easy for others to say to people like you and I, who are doctors, who are ministers, that we've led an easy life.
Yes.
We've had a good life.
And little do they know.
Oh, I had somebody say to me once, "You don't understand the real world. You were born with a silver spoon in your mouth." And I said, yes, that was my problem. You know, but they create an image because we've confronted and failed, but kept confronting. There's a belief that it must be easy for us. It must have been handed to us. And so therefore there's us and then there's them.
Yes.
Without the realization that we are all in this together.
Exactly.
Every one of us. And the blessing, I believe, of most of those who've come up through the difficulties is that we truly do want to offer a hand up to everybody else.
That's right. We always have that mentality with us, don't we?
You want to, we're all in this together.
Sure.
We're in community, and how can I help you up? I'm not going to carry you.
Exactly.
I will not carry you.
Yeah.
We have to learn that, though,
Right.
especially those of us who become therapists. We want to rescue the entire planet.
Yeah.
So you learn not to rescue anybody, but to support everybody.
Well, I was always taught, don't work harder than your clients.
Right.
But you almost want to, and you want to give, and at some point you have to say, listen, you have to want this bad enough.
Because you know they can do it even when they don't know.
Exactly.
And you just want to make them see it, and they can't.
But I want to
So
go
you learn
back
early.
to something you said a little bit earlier, and you were talking about not wanting to leave the religious life. What I think is critical about what you're saying there is that sometimes when we're called to the next step, one, we kind of have to move out of what we're comfortable with, because I'm sure what you know is what you're comfortable with. You were comfortable in this religious
and that's
life.
what it was.
But also, you loved it. And the pain of leaving people.
Who loved you.
Exactly.
And that was the first time in my life, in religious life, it was the first time in my life I went to bed without violence. The first time in my life I went to bed without screams coming from the outside windows, from other women being beaten in other apartments, or other gang fights taking place, or things happening. It was the first time in my life I went to bed in peace.
Yeah.
And so it was also the first time in my life I could wake up and not wonder what happened during the night.
Yeah.
And the first time in my life the rules were the same every single day. They didn't change day to day to day. And I had people who truly loved me and saw me. It was a blessing beyond words.
Yeah.
And I knew I was relished by many of those within religious life. And so to leave that and go back out to a world I didn't know, there was a part of me that felt called to that, and another part of me that said, but it's so comfortable here.
Sure.
And we need to honor that when we're staying someplace solely because it's comfortable, we're quickly moving into self-betrayal.
Yeah.
Because if the only thing that's keeping us here is it's comfortable, we're becoming stuck.
So can you speak to, now this sort of shifts it a little bit, but it just makes me think about it with this comfort. I find sometimes that there are people who want to follow their dreams, but they're making a ton of money over here.
Goodness,
and so if I follow my dreams, that means I can't make this ton of money. I mean, one of the hardest things I have to deal with are people who have these really, really nice, comfortable lives, who don't know what struggle is at this point in their lives, and nor do they want to go back to any type of struggle, and they are in jobs that they hate. But there are other things that they love and would love to pursue, and no matter how much I say, I think it would be wise if you would just do it and to pursue it, and they would say, no, but I love having money to be able to do X, Y, and Z.
Right.
But what are you giving up? But they're miserable.
Yeah,
they really are miserable.
The price they're paying for comfort is so high. And not for a moment I want to say, don't coast. I think whenever we've worked hard to get someplace, take a break and coast, darling.
Well, I hear you.
Live the good life, you know, for as long as you can.
Yeah.
And if you trust that, just breathe. Thank you, Jesus.
Yes,
Here we
yes,
go. And lead that good life. You're going to know when you become restless.
Yeah.
You're going to know when you're being called to the next level in your own personal growth.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, enjoy that.
Oh,
Way
yes,
funny.
yes,
Do
yes.
that. But the difficulty when that's a situation where everything in me is calling me to the next step, but I'm so attached, especially when I'm attached to things.
Sure.
You know, the price you pay is self-betrayal.
Yeah.
The price you pay is that you go there and you do what you hate to do, but you have the money, or you're in a relationship where you can't stand each other, but you love the house and you don't want to give up the house. And even though you hate going home and you're in angst every moment you're there and your partner's around, but you love the house and you don't want to lose it. What are you doing to you?
But you gain so much when you let it go.
Oh my God.
That's the thing. I mean,
you find
the happiness
you find you again. What I say to my people is, you're sitting here, this embodied soul is sitting right here. Mm-hmm. Over there is the life you've created. Over there is your job, your children if you have them, your lover, your spouse, whatever you have. There's your parents, there's your friends, there's all the groups you belong to. But all of those are this life you created. Then there's this embodied soul sitting over here. This is what the journey is about. All of that is going to shift and change. Your babies grow up and they leave you. They love you, but they leave you. All right? Your parents may love you, but they're going to go home at some point.
Right.
All right? Your friends are going to be transferred. They're going to go to different parts of the country or different parts of the world. Your jobs may change. So all of that is temporary.
Sure.
This embodied soul is the essence of who you are.
And you take that essence, the same essence that helped to create all of this over here.
But remember, we're not our lives.
Exactly.
We are so much more than our lives.
We're so much more than that. But if you take the essence of who you are,
right,
then you are able to go on and create other things, not just this, but if you leave this stuff over here that you are not really happy about
in
anyway,
the first place,
think about how amazing your life can be.
It's really like you've cleaned out the house. You're a hoarder, and you cleaned out that house. You stopped hoarding. You cleaned the house out. Now you're here.
You can breathe.
Right, you can breathe, and you discover parts of you could never see when it was buried under all of those things that became a weight you were carrying.
Yeah.
So it's willingness to take the risk to let go of all of those things there that really feel like a weight, because eventually you can't reach your own inner self.
And I know that the other thing, I know that I do this, and I'm sure that you do this too, is to help people deal with the emotional baggage and the emotional issues that are going to come from leaving those things. Because sometimes people stay in their situations because they don't want to leave other people behind. They don't want to deal with the feelings and emotions that they're going to experience, so they'd rather just suffer. They'd be the martyrs.
Yes. I've written a great deal about this. 2 of my books speak about this.
Yes.
Actually, 3 of my books. Martyrdom has been taken. You know, Christ took that role on. We move beyond it now.
Yeah.
All right. We can't out-martyr Christ. You know, so give that role up. This ridiculous waste of time and energy. We are not meant to be martyrs. Martyr is a method of self-betrayal.
Right.
The moment you feel like a martyr, you are betraying yourself. The moment you feel like a victim, you are betraying yourself. If you do not like your situation, why are you staying in it? Acknowledge, and to me this is important, I am feeling abused. Now that may be physical abuse, it may be because everybody in the world wants something from me and I never have a minute to myself, whatever it is.
Right.
Once you recognize that's where you are, and you stay, that's a choice.
Yes. Well, and
That's
it's critical
a choice.
because I always talk to people about that too. And this gets really tricky when we talk about abuse, right? Because there are times that people will say, well, I can't leave because I'm afraid, and they may do X, Y, and Z to me. But I say, you're still making a choice. You're choosing to stay out of fear, and because there's real danger, because we don't want to have anybody to say, well, you don't know the danger I'm in, but you're still choosing. You're choosing that I'm going to stay in this danger as opposed to leaving, and something may happen if you leave, but you are so right in terms of saying we have to acknowledge it and acknowledge our part in the choices that we are making.
To do this.
But I'll tell you, that's a difficult thing for people to hear.
Oh, yeah, because I think sadly what they hear is being judged. And that's never the case. You're in a job you hate. Your boss treats you like dirt. He expects you to work 18 hours a day, and you're feeling abused by the system. You're feeling abused by your boss. He may be abusive, but you volunteered for the job to be abused. Now, if you left that job, and I not for a moment say, walk out, you don't have any money, go into, live in a shelter. You know that. I've reached a point where this feels abusive to me. All right. If you're going to be pragmatic, stay in that abusive situation while you're preparing your exit.
Exactly.
I'm not saying for 23 years. While you're preparing your exit.
Right. Be strategic about your exit.
So prepare your exit. So you know a shelter to go to, or you get another job, or you find another apartment to live in, whatever the case may be, and then leave. This isn't, you got it, it's your job in 20 minutes to get out of there. Sometimes, sadly, it is.
Right.
But I've been there. On the projects is sometimes you don't have 20 minutes,
right.
All right?
You've got to go.
But what happens is that as an adult, we assess. We assess with the best of our skills. And if I feel being in this job opportunity or being in this relationship or being in this situation where I've taught all of my friends, they can call me 24/7. So I never have a moment to myself, and now I feel victimized and they're sucking me dry.
Right, because we train people with how to treat us.
Right. So if your friends are draining you and sucking you dry, you may feel cruel and abusive yourself, but you have got to say no.
Exactly.
You've got to learn to set boundaries. And you say, call me if I'm free. I'd love to be there for you if I'm free. Now, I know I have had days where I started with the patients at 7 and I finished at 6 or I finished at 7. And some days you walk out and you're full of life, and other days you crawl home.
I don't know how you do it.
So those days you're crawling home, that's where that phone machine stays on all night. Those people will survive without you.
Exactly.
Your girlfriend may like to talk to you, but she won't die because she doesn't.
That's right.
If anybody has an important message, they'll leave it. But you need to do the self-care.
And I think the hardest part is the first time you say no. And that's what our viewers need to know, is that when you say no that first time, it's going to feel uncomfortable. It may feel uncomfortable the first 20 times, but the more you do it, the more comfortable you become with saying no, and you learn to take care of yourself. But I wanted to just move us to, because you said something really important, and that was about the practicality of staying in situations until. So we've been talking about following your dreams, and I know I had a discussion with you about someone that I know who's had multiple jobs, and the practicality of saying, I don't want to stay in this job because I don't like the different jobs I've had. This is what I really want to do, but the practicality of, I need the money, so I have to stay in this job to work. Talk to us a bit about what your coaching is like with a person who really has not lived to their fullest potential by honoring this calling and saying, what do you do with the practicality in a situation like that?
The first step, I would say, and I've dealt with that, the first thing I would say to somebody is, how does martyrdom feel for you? I didn't say I'm doing martyrdom. I know you didn't. I just want you to know that is what you're doing. Because I'm over here thinking, oh, the poor baby. And if I go poor baby, it's because somebody's pretending they're a martyr. And so if this is what you want, let's back up a minute and talk to me about, logically here, because I'm not buying emotion, why you believe you can't have that.
Because, Dr. Dorothy, I have to pay for all the kids' activities that they're involved in. I have to keep my lights on. I have to pay my mortgage. So I need money.
So you've taught your children to take. A gift you would give your children is to teach them how to give. Your children are going to grow up to learn to be in relationship. What you've taught them is to learn to find somebody who will take care of them.
So are you telling me that I shouldn't allow my children to be in after-school activities, things that I'm preparing them for in the future. I mean, that's critical.
I would say to you, let's look at balance. Let's look at balance. Are they in 3 activities apiece? Are they in 1 activity apiece? Have you got them so busy that you don't have to deal with them? Let's back up and look at what it means and what values we're teaching your children. The greatest gift you can give your child is permission to be who they are. We cannot tell our children that. We have to show our children that.
Exactly.
When your children see you giving up something to follow your dream, your children learn that sometimes to follow their dream, they need to give something else up. And what a gift you give your child. This is to approach you as a mother, if that's the card you're trying to play with me. And I think it's a card you're playing with me, but I'll play with you a little bit till we throw that card out the window.
Yeah.
That's the card you're playing with. The fact is, this has nothing to do with your children.
Okay, so what about the very real reality of paying mortgage?
Right.
Keeping the lights on, all of those things.
What is your dream?
So say my dream is to, I don't know, become an actress.
All right. So you've got this job, your kids have these things. Are you taking acting classes? Are you getting out there doing commercials? You could do commercials in an evening, you can do commercials on a weekend. What are you doing to get into commercials? Let's start with the reality that our dream doesn't have to be one step.
Yes.
We find ways to not have our dream because we can't do it all tomorrow. I had a woman say to me, my biggest dream in life is to travel. And I said, well, go. Oh, I can't afford to travel the world. Don't travel the world. What if, in looking at the Sunday papers, back when we used to get Sunday papers,
yes.
you could see that you could, for $659, 7 days, you could go to Ireland, you could go to England, and you could go to Scotland. So in 1 week, you've done 3 countries. Think about that. And if that's $600 and something, and then say $1,000 by the time you buy food and do whatever else, because these are inclusive. For $1,000, you've been to 3 countries. Whether you wait 6 months, you wait 1 year. Next year, go to Spain and Portugal. They're right next to each other. Do another one of these 7-day trips, $600, $700. You've got 2 more. Now, in 1 year total, 1 now and 1 then, you've gone 5 countries. Think about that. I didn't say to you do 42 countries tomorrow.
and here's the thing that I think is really critical, is that you're saying go step by step to accomplish your goals. But when I work with people, one of the things that I first tell people in terms of accomplishing their dreams or their goals is that you first have to visualize it. You have to want this bad enough and say, I see myself doing X, Y, and Z. For me, I'm a cognitive behaviorist. That's how I was trained. So for me, it's about changing the mindset. You can't go into a situation with the same mindset that created the problem that you're in the first place. And so what you're actively saying is, we're going to change some behaviors, but we're also changing the way you're thinking about it, because what they're doing is what we kind of call catastrophizing, when you kind of make this whole big. They're looking at the big picture, saying I can't do X, Y, and Z, but you're saying yes, you can.
Catastrophizing, making everything a catastrophe gives you permission to stay stuck.
Exactly.
It's exactly what it does. Chaos, hysteria, catastrophizing, drama. It all gives you permission to stay stuck. We can do this. I have a talk I do. I've done this in several countries, actually. It's Passion and Purpose, 5 steps to claiming your dreams. First step, before you get ready to even move, eliminate all the negative messages.
Yes.
The negative messages from everybody out there who knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who tried it and it failed, so therefore it's stupid to even think about it, all right?
Right.
So there we go. So all of those, and then you find out, I don't need those messages. I've internalized them so amazingly well. I am too limited, I am too dumb, I am too inexperienced, I am too poor. I can tell you every reason in the world why I can't have it, all right? Then we have to take a risk of stepping out of the box, okay? Think big. Think out of the box. Then what you need to do is take 90 days owning that identity. I'm a world traveler.
Yes.
So for 90 days, I'm a world traveler. I haven't been any place but Springfield, all right? But I'm a world traveler. I just haven't taken off yet. But that's my sense of who I am. I'm a woman who travels. I love to see the world. I'm getting ready to take my first big trip.
So you're training your mind.
In 90 days, we now know, we used to say 30, in 90 days now, we've got it. If you walk around energetically, and I believe in energetics, for me everything's about energy, you walk around energetically shifting your energy. People begin to see you. You walk differently, you sit differently, you feel different. It's like, my God, somehow every day I feel more fluid. Things are flowing. I feel lighter. I feel more alive. Because you're growing into the woman you're becoming, or the man you're becoming. You're growing into this man or woman. And there you are. And then after 90 days, I'm a traveler. So now I've got that identity. And then third step here, clarity. I want to travel. Okay, do you want to travel the United States? Do you want to travel Europe? Do you want to travel Asia? Do you want to travel Africa? What do you want to travel? Where is it you want to go? All of it. Great. Okay, you're clear you want to do all of them. Or you may be clear, I really just want to do Europe. I just want to do Africa. Who cares? This is your dream. This is where you want to go. Pick it. Now we know that. Where do you want to start and when? Let's get clear on this. I want to start with the easiest because this is all brand new to me. Well, the easiest to me will be England and Ireland. They speak English. Relatively speaking, they speak English, all right? So go there. Don't go to foreign countries with foreign languages. That'll intimidate you to start. Go there. Now that you've got clear, your intention is to make it happen. So clarity, the third step is clarity, intention, and devotion. You're clear on where you want to go. That's your intention. That means this week you made $100. Your expenses were $95. $5 goes in that kitty.
That's right.
This is
you're
it.
Preparing
This is your
for
intention.
That's
you
right.
don't wait till you have $700. $700 doesn't show up in your wallet by Tuesday, okay? And until I have $700, I'm on saving. Well, you're never going, so the intention isn't there. That every week, whatever's left over, it goes there, and eventually it isn't what's left over. I start sacrificing some of this, so every week money's going into that.
And that critical piece about the sacrificing means that you might have to not give your children something that they don't need, but just want.
In the first place.
Exactly, for yourself.
But what they're seeing is, look at my mom. She is so powerful. My mom is going to travel. Wow. Mom, when I'm big, what I want to do is, well then good for you, sweetheart. Start planning now. So when you're big, you can do it. And it doesn't matter if by the time he's big, the dream changes. This age, he knows he can have a dream and he can make it happen. Look at what Mommy did.
That's right.
All right?
That's right.
And so now you've got it. Now your intention is to do that. So this money's going away every week. And then you're dedicated to that. Oh, God, I have to put money away again. No, you don't. Give up the dream. You're choosing to sacrifice. You're choosing to put money away. All right? And then when you look at all of that, you can say, wow, you feel different about you. You absolutely feel different about you. You've changed. And people say, you've changed. And for some people, that's a negative. I like the women I used to be able to manipulate. Go back to her.
Oh,
she worked better for me.
Of course, yes.
You know?
Yes.
Of course I've changed. Well, you're disappointed. I'm thrilled. And I'm not going to feel guilty because you're disappointed. I grew.
Right. And you know what? I think that what you're saying is so powerful. And one of the tools that I often use is to have people to write these things out. So as you were talking about, let's say, being clear and your intentions, that's great. I have people to write it down because writing does something differently than speaking it. You know, I can sit here and talk to you and I can say, yes, I want to make a lot of money. But what does that mean that I want to make? But if I have to sit down and start writing, what does it look like? Totally different thing. We're soon running out of time here, but I just want to share with you because I thought about this when you're saying, you know, in 90 days, you know, you're basically being clear and claiming what you want. One of the things that I've been saying for the last few months is that I'm walking into my Oprah status, you know, and my daughter will say, Mom, you're not going to have Oprah's money. I said, it's not about the money. I said, my Oprah status, you know, like it's a whole mindset with that. And when I've said it to people, just like you were saying earlier, they'll say, I see it. I see that for you because I am setting my intentions for what I believe that I am called to do. Now, that doesn't mean I'm saying I'm going to be the next talk show host
Right.
or whatever, but it's really about claiming that I'm walking into my fullest potential and living the lifestyle that I want to live.
And notice the people that say to you, I see that,
Yes.
are the people who are living their dreams.
Yes.
The people
Yes.
who know that's crazy,
Yeah.
who do you think you are,
Yeah.
are the people who are so terrified of living their own dreams, they can't fathom you living yours.
And that's why you can't tell everybody
Yeah,
everything.
discriminating.
Sometimes you have to just say, this
Yeah.
person doesn't need to know what I'm pursuing. But really, really quickly, because we are going to run out of time, I want to just say to you, please go to the website and look up the golden rules for this week once we post this, because there's so many crucial things that we said today. And the sacred was involved in a lot of what we said, but that selfish piece of taking care of ourselves and really honoring our own journey through this process and jumping into whatever you're doing very passionately and staying focused to that. We want to make sure that you get what these golden rules are. I want to thank Dr. Dorothy for joining us. How can people get in touch with you and learn more about you, Dr. Dorothy?
My website, askdrdorothy.com, Dorothy, DOROTHY.com, or they can email me at dorothy@askdrdorothy.com.
Yes, and I
Yeah.
hope that you will. It was very exciting having you with us today.
Oh,
thank
thank you.
for joining us as well. If you want more information about Sacred Intelligence, go to info@sacredintelligence.com. You can actually email us there, but go to our website, www.sacredintelligence.com. We will see you next time, and until then, follow your dreams. Bye-bye now.